Hello, everybody. It's Lenny Murphy with another edition of the Green Book Podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend it with myself and my guest. And today, I am joined by guys I've had a chance to get to know over the past couple of years. Full disclosure, had a brief commercial relationship as they were exploring things. But Hendrik Van Hove, the co-founder and CPO of Conveo.ai. Hendrik, welcome.
Hey, super excited to be here and great to see you again, Lenny.
It's good to see you as well. It had been too long. So I'll build off that background a little bit because I think it's relevant to the context here. So we all remember the great AI boom, right? When suddenly we started seeing commercial applications of generative AI being deployed in research space, especially within qualitative research. And one of the early companies in doing that was Conveo, and you had reached out to myself and Greg Archibald at Gen 2 and said, "Hey, take a look and tell us what you think," which was very cool and very exciting to be able to do that, and also incredibly instructive for me to realize, holy crap, the game has just changed. You know, that the applications of these platforms, even in its early iteration, right, when you were just kind of coming out of beta, maybe certainly not as sophisticated as it is now, but it was clearly the writing was on the wall on what we were going to see. So, and also amazing, you and your team coming in at that point with no research background. So I want to make sure we just kind of dig into that. So let's use that as a segue. Let's talk about kind of your origin story, your background, and how you got to Conveo, and then we can dig in and get a little more geeky on other stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So as you mentioned, I'm Hendrik co-founder, and I do basically everything commercial. So try to spend as much time with our customers as possible. And I'm not technical, so I can't really, let's say, build a platform. But I did study artificial intelligence at university. And so from there on out, I basically started working at McKinsey. And right before that, ChatGPT launched publicly. And yeah, it was all a frenzy, right? And so I was super lucky because I started at McKinsey, and there they were like, okay, you studied AI. You're now going to do all these AI use case scans for Fortune 500 companies. And basically what that meant is sitting together on a board level and the C-suite, but especially sitting next to practitioners on every side of the business. So that's marketing, research, sales. And one of those use cases that really stood out to me was research. I also did a ton of B2B interviews at McKinsey, but there was mostly very expensive experts, so not the same as what we do today. But to me, market research was just a perfect use case for AI 2 years ago already, because there were a lot of shiny things that really didn't work at scale. But it's also a problem that can never be solved. So you can keep building and creating value for years to come because you can never understand your market perfectly. And so that's really how it started. And that's now 2 years ago. And here we are.
That's fascinating to be in that position of like, oh, I'm being paid to figure out a new business. Okay, from McKinsey, and that's often, even in my role today, that there's similarities of I'm looking at all of these things, that are going on and talking to folks, and there's always a back of my mind of, oh, there's an opportunity there. No one has identified that gap. You took it a step further of you went into Y Combinator. So how did you get from, maybe there's something here to actually getting selected in Y Combinator and going, starting to bring this to life?
Yeah, so to us, Y Combinator as a Belgian company, right, it's really a game changer. Like there's, as soon as you get in, you get so much more access to venture capital, etc. It's really like also a confidence boost to, let's say, like, okay, hey, we are here and we can really go for it. But so how we got in, I actually applied in I think October 2023, and then we didn't get in the first time. So but to me, I had enough confidence in the idea. Y Combinator had also said like, hey, keep working on the idea. So quit McKinsey, sat around the kitchen table for a few months, basically met my co-founder Dieter, who's hyper technical. He built a $500 million company before as CTO. So we then met, started building the platform. 6 months later, we applied again, and then we got in. But as you mentioned in your first question, yeah, Dieter was a CTO. I have a business background, basically some understanding of AI, but we didn't really have the market research knowledge, right? And so we got in, but then we quickly realized, hey, if we're gonna want to do this, we want to do it well. So and then luck had it actually that we met Niels at a wedding via an introduction, and from one thing turned to another. Niels immediately said after 2-3 meetings, "Hey, I'm going with you guys to San Francisco." And so, for those who don't know Niels, maybe you're better positioned to give the introduction. But he's our head of market research. He's been in the industry for more than 25 years. Founded Humanate and was president at SMR, involved at MRII, etc. And with the three of us, we really have what we need to make the AI agent be really like a research assistant. Niels is able to instill all his frameworks, etc. And if we hadn't had Niels, then it's so easy to hack together an AI moderator, but to make it really good with these time-tested techniques that the market research industry is built on, that's actually extremely hard. And so, yeah, you're very right to ask. Like, I'm an outsider, but there is incredible value in having a market researcher on the team who builds the AI into what it should be.
Well, let's explore that a little bit more because I think in the initial explosion of tools like Conveo and your competitors, there was a real threat feeling from a lot of folks in the industry that this is going to take away my job, and in some cases maybe so, but in most cases, I think it quickly became apparent that no, this is a superpower. This is an augmentation, and when built correctly, fit for purpose, as I would say that you guys have done with Neil's guidance, that it creates new possibilities that we previously did not have, particularly scale, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the speed, cost, efficiencies, I mean, those are no brainers, which obviously you saw early on as part of your idea. So now you're in the market. You received a substantial VC round as
Yeah.
well. So a lot of confidence from folks to say, yeah, we think this is great and this is going to be transformative. How has that? Uh, are you seeing in the market that shift from fear of like, holy crap, no, this is going to kill me and eliminate my job, to this is a superpower and it's going to enable me to do things differently? How is that happening right now, kind of in the trenches?
Yeah, there's kind of a change we went through internally, and then there's the change you're describing. The way that I really felt it was a year ago, and it was only a year ago when our initial product was getting ready to sell. There was so much skepticism still about AI moderation. Like, we had to convince people. There was no follow up, etc. And yeah, it was just, we needed to really find those early adopters and early believers. But most people still dismiss the moderator. Today, no one, even when we do a demo, wants to look at the moderator. They're just like, yeah, AI moderation works. And in less than a year, that shift has been absolutely incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and really, it keeps blowing me away. So that's a very big one. Then the second thing we went through internally is, we've kind of started in the market with a solution, right? We said like, hey, we have this an AI moderator. You can now do qual at scale, etc. But we spent a ginormous amount of time with our researchers and their stakeholders more and more, and we've kind of fallen in love with the problem of having insights and understanding your target markets drive revenue for the business. And so, whereas the AI moderator was very much our initial focus, we are now much more focused on, hey, how do we solve this problem? And that means also being able to, for example, upload videos. We're experimenting with building social listening, learning across different studies, etc. And so that comes into your question, like, hey, are people actually scared of losing their job? But if you give people all of these powerful tools to generate revenue impact in the business, which you get because it's so much easier to run research that you'll just run more of it, right? You won't replace researchers because everyone has a backlog of the 101 projects. Then you can actually your role becomes way more relevant. And so researchers at Unilever, for example, instead they have a 3-month sprint. Instead of running 3 projects, they now run 10, 15, 20 projects with Conveo, and their stakeholders are loving it because all of a sudden, instead of a blocker, you're an enabler. So I think researchers have yet to see their best days.
Boy, a lot of follow-ups on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, go.
Yeah, well, it was one. Well, you said this year. That's kind of what we detected with grit. We
Yeah,
used that as a tool. It was
yeah,
about this time last year that it shifted.
exactly.
So it was just very clear in the data that we went from, early adopter skepticism to, okay, it's we're going to embrace this, and it's still maybe somewhat marginal, but not marginal, but there's still ways to go. So that shift is tangible. Multiple data points. You
Exactly.
validated that. The in that idea that tools like this transform the value that we can deliver, not just speed and cost efficiencies, um, but how does that, the cheaper, faster, better? What is, how do we zoom in on what is that better? And from what you said, it sounds like that your clients are recognizing that better component is uh, not just speed to insight, but speed to impact for a
Exactly.
company like Unilever. Of okay, we get to be very iterative, get to be very agile, and build better products that with a greater likelihood of success. And so you're looking at that systemic transformation uh, that is proving itself as this is tangible in real world business impact, moving the needle for your users in creating better products or
Exactly.
messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's you know. So we're recording this on October 9th, and last week was SMR. And were you at the SMR conference?
Yes, we had a great showing talk with Unilever. Even it was
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
great conference.
okay. So I heard through the grapevine that there was a panel with Simon Chadwick and Kristen Luck, um, and they name checked me, and Simon said, "Well, Lenny thinks the industry is doomed." Now, come to find out that is not the full context. The context was he was talking about conversations he and I have had around this very topic. The transformation of the process has implications for business, cost, all of those things. Uh, and so companies who don't adapt very well may have real challenges, right? Business models are shifting as well. So you're using an end client example for Unilever, but I assume that the same thing goes to your supplier side agency users. That look, this is a superpower that it's going to change, but you can now do more than you could have done before, right? It's an augmentation. It's a multiplier effect, and the but the implications are the way you've been organized and even the way you're charged, your revenue models now must shift. Are you seeing that as well? Are you seeing that transformation on the agency side users of looking at utilizing Conveo as a competitive advantage as they transform their models as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think agencies always feel it first, right? You're always in a bake-off against the next agency that has the shiny thing, and there's so few barriers to changing or trying something new for clients. So agencies always feel it first, and we really try to listen super closely to our agencies and say like, hey, how can we help you win more pitches, right? Because that's where it all starts, and then deliver the actual value to the client. And just the other day, I got an email back from an agency, and I absolutely loved it. The title was "Aha, now I get it." And so what the person wrote was. Where we use Conveo, it's not to replace the main data collection point that we would traditionally run as an agency, but we now have like instead of one big data collection sprint, we maybe have 5, 10, or even 20 small data collection sprints around it that we do with Conveo. Sometimes it's even only 5 people, right? Just to get a feel, or you do like post interview or pre, etc. And they can just have many more valuable insights and touch points with their client. And so it's really about not only about saving costs and yeah, the client will cut your costs down. No, the client has their budget, right? And sure, sometimes they cut it, but ultimately it's a competitive market and they need to have better insights than their competition to defend market share and generate more revenue. So the more value you can provide as an agency for the same dime, the more you'll be in vogue. And so that's really the agencies we see lead. They are super creative in terms of what they do for their clients with these tools.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. So you think that we're heading into kind of the golden age of the industry. And for
Yeah.
the record, Simon and Kristen and anybody who was in that SMAR panel, I agree. I just think it's also incredibly evolutionary, driven by the type of imperatives that you're talking about. The All right, so let's get a little more into the weeds. So
So,
you have I won't ask you
yes,
about
yeah.
about coding or anything of that nature, but uh, so you had this idea, you brought in experts to help refine it and get it fit for purpose. You're getting market acceptance. Um, Now there's also these bigger issues that we're grappling with, the whole world is grappling with, around data ownership and privacy, particularly as you're evolving models. Uh, Also on building data ecosystems that unlock even more value from the data, through connectivity and other systems directly into LLMs. How are you guys navigating that? Have you found those to be challenges? Is this still something that you're working through? And what do you think the future looks like when we think about data privacy and ownership, while also data being the fuel that drives more innovation?
Yeah, two thoughts there for me. I think this is one of those things where people kind of overestimate the 1 year progress and underestimate the 10 year progress. And so to us, that we're actually not even thinking about that right now. We are doing the AI moderated interviews. People have videos that they want to upload. They're asking us to do quant. We are doing a lot with the data processing and bringing that closer to concept generation. We have like the multimodal analysis, etc. Those are all things that are incredibly new. But in terms of connecting with more continuous data streams and new data ecosystems, etc., that's not something that's at least on our clients' minds. Otherwise, we would prioritize it because that's really how we work. Now, if we zoom out, and if I see that 2 weeks ago Meta launched their new Ray-Ban glasses with a screen in it, etc. I'm maybe going to take you on a little trip here, but if OpenAI and all these AI companies want to give you a personal assistant, right, which is obviously their goal, and I would love one, then that personal assistant is going to be as valuable as possible if it knows what you see, what you are doing, what's even on your screen, most likely. And so it's going to be always on gathering context. What I think is going to happen is instead of asking what a panel will look like in the future will be an app, the Dynata app or something, or maybe it's Conveo, I don't know. And it will say like, hey, do you want to participate in this panel for, I don't know, Reckitt, P&G, whatever? We'll look for moments that are interesting for us. And once you are in such a moment, we'll give you a little notification and ask you a few questions on how you make your decisions. And most likely, you'll probably already have shared why you made those decisions, right? And so then you're looking at a completely new way of tapping into many more people because all of a sudden everyone is addressable. There's much lower effort from the participants to share because most of the info the AI already knows. So you'll just say, hey, sure, I'll share level 3 information data of this week with P&G at a much lower cost. And for the brands, it's much more relevant and timely, and it's not claim behavior, it's observed behavior. And to me, like that's going to take shorter than people think before we're in a world like that. And the impact of that
It's
is
already happening.
yeah, it's already happening. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I agree with you
I was
100%.
done.
Okay. the, uh, for those who aren't watching the video, I was nodding vigorously because those conversations, in my consultant role, I'm privileged to talk to lots of different folks, and I am keenly aware that uh, money is being spent right now to bring that overall vision to life.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and in many cases, it already is alive. It is happening. The old William Gibson quote, right? The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. So, yeah, I think that yeah, I agree with you. But you started with talking about Meta and the Ray Bans and
Yep.
wearables. So, I was a glass hole back in the day, one of the first people to. Uh, when you were just a kid, Hendrik.
Well,
So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't help.
yeah.
Like, God, you're yeah, I mean, totally complimentary. Like you're just so young, and and I feel so old, and having this conversation. Anyway, uh, so I've believed obviously in the possibility of wearables, and there were so many infrastructure issues, bandwidth, et cetera,
Yep.
processing power. I think we're past all those. Hence, why the new focus on wearables. But it is interesting when we think about the idea uh, of a moderated chat, there is a form factor there, right?
Yep.
And we're looking at a screen, so we're engaging whether it's with regards to device, right? There is an intermediary of a device that we are engaging. Are you guys thinking about what does that look like when it is solely probably voice without a screen, or maybe a screen projected onto a lens or whatever the case may be? But the wearable shift, not just for data collection, passive data collection, which I really think you were going, but also active engagement. What do you think that looks like?
Yeah, so we've today made the choice to only do voice and video, and we don't, for example, have typed answers, and that's because we really believe that, yeah, one, the quality is just ridiculously much higher versus typed answers, so we don't even want to entertain it. But second, that's also really where we believe the future will be. And I don't know if you've worn those Meta Ray Bans before, but they blast like audio from the leg in your ear, and the microphone is there as well, so you don't even need to wear AirPods anymore. And so it's incredibly subtle actually. And so you could, for example, imagine to really pull a bit more on the thread that we had earlier, like, hey, you're in the supermarket looking at a shelf, right, with your glasses on. You've said like, hey, I will participate in a continuous panel or something, and there's like a little boom, right, a notification, and the AI says like, can I start a 10-minute interview with you on this shelf, right? And then you just talk to the AI. You don't even have to press a button or anything. And afterwards it stops and you just continue with your day. Those are really the seamless ways, I think, that people will interact with interviewers and provide answers to data collection efforts by companies. So yeah.
Well, and I think that's for a company like Conveo, we think in terms of quant and qual, and particularly quant from a the only reason we came up with the survey was a way to structure data, right? To make it easier to analyze. I mean, that was the point. And certainly there's other conjoint design, and there's some benefits obviously in that type of interface. But the barrier of going to something that is more conversational, probing, et cetera, has really just been scalability, and particularly analytical
That's really
scalability.
soft now, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. So in the world that you're envisioning, where we've been so tied up with impact on form factor, right? I mean, the shift from we went from mail to telephone to taking the telephone survey, making it visual for online, and then there was a huge controversy about screen size and mobile and all of those things, and they will increasingly just be irrelevant. Um, will simply be answering questions.
Or not even having to answer, and you just, and I can even see a world where the AI says like, hey, I've seen all of these data points that are interesting to ABC companies, can I share it for X dollar? And by the way, I talked about this the other day with someone, and they were saying, yeah, but then it will be espionage and you will selling your data, etc. I think actually because the data will become so much more personal because you're talking to it and it's going to be able to see things, the I actually think that the world will go to more private data ownership, away from giving it away unknowingly today for free and being bombarded with advertisements. So I actually think that this future is, to me, more inspiring because you'll have your data logbox. You can share for payment whether you share it or not, what level you share. That's, to me, a way better world than where we are today with like a Meta or something.
Oh, did we not ever talk about Veriglyph
Oh,
when we first met? No, well, I won't. This is your interview, not mine, but we should circle
no,
back
go
around. I agree with you 100%. I tried to build that business in 2017. So and lots of reasons why it didn't take off. But I agree with you 100% that that is the vision where we should have a system where personal data is an asset like anything else.
exactly.
It is managed to be liquid, and everyone should have the choice in how that is monetized. The so agree. We have a whole other conversation
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
And it's not a new concept, right? I mean, that was unique for us to come up with that idea, uh, or for you to come up with that vision. The I think there's a lot of consensus, and there has been for a long time, that that is a world that we need to get to. The barriers were the technology, scalability, but there's also a barrier, and this is, I think, this is an interesting one. Just think about long term. Well, we found doing the research on Veriglyph, and I won't go too far down that path, but was consumers love the idea, but the process of doing it,
Classic.
yeah, pain in the ass. They didn't want to have to deal with the management of the process. So again, I would argue that AI is the great unlock. It's the Gordian knot cutter, because that can make those decisions for you and make it easier, so that it is a digital exhaust, effectively, right?
Yeah.
For the consumer, rather than needing to be an active participant.
Yeah, I agree. But to me, in that equation, and I'm way too passionate about this too, we can talk about this for hours. But to me, in that equation, there's like the pain of doing it, there's the perceived intrusion, and then there is the benefit of that you would receive. And to me, the pain of doing it, sure, that's a big one, but the data is going to be way more private because it listens to your conversations, and you know it listens to your conversations, right? Because you instruct it to do it. It's your personal assistant. You don't really know what Meta knows about you. You know, you don't really know what the cookies know about you. It's not as perceivable. But then also, because the data is with voice, video, can tie things together, it's also much more valuable than your click stream. And so, because now AI is actually making purchases for you, right? And so I think that those two parts of the equation will increase so much that that might be what was the missing component of people actually going over that struggle and being like, okay, now it's too much and I want to own it myself.
It just occurred to me, I owe you an apology.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you hired Greg and I to help, look at the product, uh, I remember coming back and saying, your goal is, how do we become a unicorn?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you can't. There's not a path for you to become a unicorn. It's a utility.
Yeah.
Um, and through this conversation, it occurred to me of, dude, I was wrong. So absolutely, because so tell me, without giving away any secrets, with the thinking that you were talking about, then I think the race is on then for a platform that is the enabling technology to help bring that vision to life. And that is a much, much bigger opportunity. I would argue that the potential is there now for Conveo to be the enabling interface, uh, in some form or fashion, maybe own it, maybe be a piece of an ecosystem, but that helps unlock that global scale and new value proposition. And in that case, my friend, then you can be a unit.
Yeah.
Um, so, am I? getting close to home on where your ambitions. You're like, all right, Lenny, we're not going to tell you our business model or plan, but is that, do you see those type of possibilities?
Yeah, well, so the original question that put us on this road was like, where's this data ecosystem place, etc. Right? And I kind of started the question answering. There's the 5 and a 10-year vision, which is I feel what we're talking about now, and there's what Conveo is doing today. And so, I mean, we're far from a unicorn, right? We're just today doing the moderation, doing the concept testing, being very close to how research is being done today, breaking barriers between quant and qual and cost, etc. And that'll continue for a while. But believe you me, one of the biggest issues for us is still panel. Like we integrate with any panel in the market. We are agnostic. So by definition, we have the best panel coverage globally because we work with anyone and it's all integrated via an API. But still, it's a big problem. And so, yeah, at some point, if no one else does it, and I really believe in these fundamentals, right, as we just discussed, then yeah, maybe then we'll do it, right? But I cannot see a future where someone will not take that approach, especially on panel, to solve that recruiting issue.
So I agree with you. But we should talk offline.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some companies that do some interesting stuff along those lines. I mean, I've continued. I let go of my own. Uh, yeah, I failed at pulling Veriglyph off, but I've paid attention to other companies that are going down similar paths and they're building at least on that kind of
yeah,
panel data side. Anyway, we can have that conversation.
yeah,
But what's interesting thing about that is from rumors that are happening out there, right? It appears that the big AI companies are paying attention to needing a real time access to consumers for data feeds.
yeah,
I know for a fact that some of the big tech platforms have been circling around a few panel companies. And not because they're particularly interested in market research, they are interested in that direct consumer connection and pulling in an always on data feed of specific information,
yeah,
basically a syndicated model. Um, uh, and I would fully expect to see as part of the ecosystem of the kind of the arms race of which AI platform for them to make some direct plays that way.
yeah,
I mean, it's easy. Grok has that data feed, but through X, so that's good. Obviously, Google has Google. Meta has, they have Facebook and Instagram, etc. But Anthropic,
yeah,
Perplexity, OpenAI. I mean, they just launched Sora, so I guess they're trying to build their own social network. It's an issue for them to have those direct relationships with consumers to have that data that then can be monetized through driving better outcomes for brands.
yeah, definitely.
So, uh, I mean, you're probably closer to that from the tech world standpoint. Is there any buzz that you're hearing about this type of things?
Well, in terms of buzz, like I'm terminally on Twitter to follow technology, right? And whatever you think of like politics, whatever, but it's still the best way to follow technology.
100%.
And, yeah, and so if you think about, okay, what were LLMs originally? It was all text based, right? Now we're moving more into video generation. There's audio, which is still something we're building on with multimodal, being the only ones who do that. But
Yeah,
next,
like Twitter Spaces, what a
yeah,
rich
yeah,
mine
exactly.
of information Twitter Spaces are. Yes, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But I'm really talking about AI models, right? And like, so we went from purely text to now multimodal. But the next step will be real world AI. The multi-trillion-dollar gold prize ultimately for those companies is robotics and having a personal assistant that really understands you. But that's all based on video, right? And it's all based on tacit context of how people live their lives. And reality is, or that's at least my belief, it's also what Elon is saying for his self-driving cars, that data is not written down in data that's traditionally fed into these models. And so what you're saying from a first principles perspective makes total sense to me, that these companies would love to have all of this data that you can only observe by having consumers share what their life is like. And I think that passive video and almost like thinking out loud, so to speak, right, is one of the best ways for these companies to do that at scale. I'm sure that Meta's AI glasses have a second goal of gathering the type of data for their AI models, right? I couldn't fathom them not using it for that. So
100%. That's why I would argue when they bought Instagram, they wanted to build that visual recognition library. They wanted the images. So, and that was just a good way to amass this amazing uh, visual data library to build training sets off of.
yeah, that's an interesting point because I feel if you zoom out to the time they bought Instagram, etc., the internet was so new applications. I think by then it just looked to them like a cool application. But believe you me, today that thinking underlies everything they do. Every
Absolutely.
acquisition, every feature they build, the Sora 2 slop app is what we call it. That's
Yeah,
purely data training, right? That's just uh,
100%.
yeah,
100% that, yeah, I agree. People get too bogged down in the, you know, maybe Elon's political stuff. Anybody who uh, dismisses this overall thinking,
yeah,
whether it's Elon or anybody else, on it's all about the data. It's all about unlocking the value creation of the data and building systems that allow you to access that.
yeah.
That's it. And maybe in Elon's case, it's because he wants to build systems that also allow us to live on Mars, right? He may have this whole other higher order, right? So, but the it's 100% clear, and anything that enables, like Conveo, uh, enables purpose-built, focused uh, data engagement
Yeah,
and collection, uh, then now has the possibility of unlocking lots of different things. We've seen the social platforms that did it somewhat at scale, utilize a different business model. I think those business models are in danger um, for a variety of reasons. And uh, what you're enabling is that more purpose-built, focused, defensible
yeah,
um, uh, data asset development, which is something that many companies want. I mean, I'm aware of big brands that are investing a lot of money in building their own unique data assets.
yeah. That's all value, like what we're obsessed with. And because I love nothing more than talking about like the future, even if it's only 3 years away. But like today is just there's almost no longevity in insights whatsoever, right? And so if you run all these studies, you can like we're building these personas based on actual people. You're building like a digital twin of the market based on your interviews, on your understanding of the market, and sure for a meta that means having AI training data, etc. But for an FMCG company, right, you need to understand your market as well. And maybe okay, you can build you can actually build a consumer model that is a replication of what all these people do. All of the interviews you run with them, you can purposefully run studies to fill gaps in your consumer model. That's more the direction we're thinking of.
Yes,
So if
agreed.
I think about the future of Conveo, without exactly sharing too much, I think that you can populate a lot of the digital twin of a FMCG company, communications, marketing, channels, R&D, white space mapping, competition, positioning, and build that as a layer in between your data lake, which is all of the Conveyor interviews, and your impact and the decisions you want to make. And you constantly feed that layer. I think that's kind of the translation of what OpenAI is trying to do for the world, right? With the technology and LLMs. And we want to leverage LLMs to make that very practical for FMCG companies, for example.
Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly. The uh, I've been talking about for a while that uh, as we amass available data and centralize that, the need to ask questions will decrease, but the questions we do need to ask will increase in importance.
100%. And they will continue to live. I think we're now today making it easier to run 10 studies instead of one, right? And because at the same 50K cost, you can now run 10 studies which are with video and voice instead of just a quant of a certain size. And those 10 studies will all compound into one living data body instead of PowerPoint, right? And that's then the consumer model that these companies can interact with. And with that, we're only at the basics. Like we were talking about SMR just a few minutes ago. There's great ideas there, but today it's about concept iteration with AI, for example. There's so much distance between what we just talked about with the market map and generating concepts with AI. And even that is super powerful and super would turbocharge these businesses. And we're not even there yet today, right? That was one of the biggest presentations was with Elaine from Reckitt. It was amazing. But yeah, there's so much to build in the future, and you and I are clearly dreaming of it. But every day I'm like, hey, client problems today. Let's listen to them. Let's build what they need today. And I keep an eye on that, and I talk to VCs about it because they need to fund that roadmap. But today we're heads down building what our customers struggle with today. So
Yeah.
hard to keep
Good.
those two in mind. I'm sure you have the same. If you talk to people in the industry and then read about technology, there's such a gap. Uh,
Yes. I agree with you 100%. That there's a long way to go, but the speed of getting there
that's amazing.
now is likely to be far faster
Yeah,
than what we thought about before.
definitely. That's why it always surprises me when there's these large companies that say, "Hey, we're going to build it all in house." Like that's so ambitious to build that in house, especially as the economies of scale happen so much faster. The go to market happens faster. Adoption, you can switch vendors if you don't build it in house. So yeah, I think. But yeah, hats off if you pull it off, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, you and I could go on for a long time talking
Yeah,
about
yeah, definitely.
all of this stuff, and I want to be conscious of your time as well as our listeners. Um, let's move towards the close. So first, the question always asked: is there anything you wanted to cover that we have not covered? Because I think whatever guide we had, we may have touched on some of it, but we definitely went way off of it. So um,
um, yeah, I could go into a commercial avenue and do a pitch on Conveo, but I would just say find us at a conference and talk to us. But I think what my biggest learning has been in the past year building Conveo is, and it's kind of a riff on what you just said, the world is changing so fast and there's so much competition. The only way you can win as a company doing what we do is just by building faster than anyone else and also building the right thing. And so, in terms of building the right thing, it's very easy to sit around a whiteboard and draw out these big ideas and say, like, hey, already going to bet the farm on that. But I think what we are doing successfully and what's going to enable us to get to that future and then tackle those big problems later on is just having our engineers talk to our customers, hear what they're struggling with. There's no product managers in between. You just hear the problem directly and then you build it. So I actually try to take myself out of the equation of product as much as possible as CPO, because if when our engineers really understand the problem, they can fire off the solutions to the client immediately. That's when yeah, the quickest improvements happen, and also the most creative ideas, because non-technical people in between the client and their problem and the solution, that's actually when things get boiled down to non-innovative solutions.
that is a great perspective. Um, as someone who gets bogged into the big idea too often, um, the and wonder why did it fail? Because to get from point A to Z, you got to go B, C, D, right? And
Exactly,
that's that
exactly.
focus of addressing
And
the needs today.
being 10 years too early is not as hard as people think, actually, right?
Story of my life, dude.
But,
So,
but for real. And so that's kind of something that I need to. I'm a futurist at heart. Like nothing gets me more excited and optimistic about the future. But yeah, you need to put one step in front of the other. And it's also, for example, these AI meta glasses, right? I see companies at fairs that do that today already, but if it's not scalable, you will not be able to build a business around it that'll survive until the point where there is mass adoption. And do I believe we're there already? No, it'll take at least 3 years, and I think it's going to take 5. And so in that time, I want to build a healthy business that solves problems for customers today already. And if then that's an opportunity, then we'll do it then, right? Um, yeah, that's that would be my thoughts. But I love the conversation. I get so much energy thinking 10 steps ahead. It's really these conversations that draw me out of the day to day business building, so to speak.
Well, always around to bloviate about the
Yeah,
possible future. So you know how to reach me. On that note, Hendrik, this has been great. I know that we'll talk again, and I'm sure that we'll talk again
definitely.
publicly in this type of forum. How can people reach you? How can they find out about Conveo outside of finding you at an event?
Yeah. Yeah. So our website's conveo.ai. You can reach out to us at hello@conveo.ai. And yeah, we'll be very happy to receive an email from you.
Okay. Well, any last thoughts you want to get out there before we wrap this up?
No, I truly love the conversation. So thank you for your time as well, Lenny.
Uh, Always. Well, thank you. So I guess that is it for this edition of the Green Book Podcast. First, big shout out to our listeners. Thank you. Obviously, Hendrik and I find sometimes to talk, but we hadn't in a long time. So I appreciate you giving us the excuse to do this, and hopefully you found some value and inspiration out of our rambling. We do know that you have choices, and making that choice, spend time with us. We appreciate it very much. Big shout out to Bridget, our producer. Without her, none of this would happen. To our auditors, Big Bad Audio, to our sponsors, which I think, Conveo, you're
Yeah.
actually going to be, are one of those sponsors. So thank you again for that as well. It's always nice to do something that you're actually helps pay the bills. So thank you. And with that, we're going to sign off for this edition. We'll be back with another Green Book Podcast real soon. Thanks a lot. Everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.